as far as I understand, officially the smallest city in England. Is that
It
right?
is. It
Okay.
is. Yeah,
A
yeah.
city in England officially being defined by the fact that it has a cathedral. Is that
Absolutely.
correct?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and Wales obviously does have a beautiful cathedral. And am I right in thinking that Bishop's Barn that you just talked about is somewhere very close to that cathedral? Is that right?
Yeah, yes, it's a 2-minute walk. Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
it's right in the sort of centre of Wales, basically.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about how did this crazy commission come about?
So my husband and I were walking in the marketplace one May bank holiday, and we bumped into a friend who had his high-vis jacket on, and he was doing a charity event for Wales Lions. And he said, I've got an idea to put a mosaic in a public space somewhere in Wales. And if I get permission, I'd like you to do it. So that was it. That was the starting point. And I then thought, wow, and hardly slept for a couple of weeks. It was just so daunting. And then, we just got together a few more times and talked it through and his ideas. And then he just left it with me, really.
Wow. So that's pretty amazing, isn't it? So we will talk about this sort of the design in a little bit, but what is it? I mean, I think it is, am I right in thinking that on the screen now, that Bishop's Barn?
That's the Bishop's Barn, yes.
Okay.
Tide Barn, yeah.
So, and you said this area is being redeveloped, is that right? So what actually needs to, obviously you're making a mosaic, but there's a whole load of stuff that needs to go on before a mosaic can be put into the ground. Presumably there needs to be groundworks and that kind of thing. So what actually needs to go on, what kind of prerequisites are there before you can go ahead with the project?
So that's really not my department. So I will just touch on it lightly because the team are dealing with that. So we've got initial permission granted, and we haven't got a pinpoint location because of this redevelopment. It's impossible to say at the moment whereabouts it's going to go. But also there's going to be an archaeological dig because it's a historic site. So that, we've engaged an architect and he'll organise all of that. So, all of that was researched very early on as to what we would need to do in this sort of area. So, yeah, that's about it on that.
Okay, so it's not sort of full steam ahead, obviously.
No.
Although equally, obviously, mosaic takes a long time, and so there is a fair amount of time to play with, right? So
yes,
you are busy beavering away while this stuff is going on. So has the redevelopment started, or is this still in the future? Where are we at in the timeline?
So it's all in the planning stages at the moment, in the discussion stages. So yeah, we're just keeping an eye on things.
Okay. And just briefly, what kind of redevelopment are they doing? Are we talking the grounds, or are we talking
They're talking about the barn itself, and they're talking about the grounds as well. So it's quite a major project, I believe.
Okay, got it. So obviously this is not this size of project. I think, one of the things that we will sort of see over the process of this conversation is the size of this project. And it's no small undertaking.
No.
So this is, I think my next question is really about, although I know that you're doing much of the mosaic yourself, this is the kind of project where you sort of need some supporters along the way. So I just wondered, what kind of supporters have you got? What really makes the team for your project?
So, yeah, the team has grown. I'm very delighted to say. Obviously, it started with Steve, and then myself and my husband, we sort of go in tandem because he's much more technical than I am. So he's very, very good on that side. And then Steve Welsh, who is currently the mayor, but back along a few years ago, he was involved with it as well, because he's very good at PR. He's an ex-journalist, so he was doing a lot of our publicity.
He the guy who was in the high vis originally? No, that was another.
No, that's Steve.
That's another Steve. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we enlisted the help of Chris Winter, who is the chair of the Civic Society locally. So she knows a lot of people. She writes a lot of our media articles and does an awful lot of our PR as well. And yeah, I mean, everybody contributes a huge amount. And then some other friends have come on board recently that are helping with fundraising events that we were doing to sort of raise funds and get people involved and make the project more public. So that was great. And then there were people behind the scenes who were helping with the research, a couple of local fantastic historians who I did a walking tour with one of them, and the other one, Claire, I went to see, and we sat down and talked through lots of the history to make sure I'd got, you know, my details right.
Okay, so that already sounds like a veritable band of volunteers and supporters, right?
Yeah.
Somebody in government, so to speak, you have somebody who does PR, you have the historians behind you. So that really is a great basis for a project like this.
Absolutely brilliant.
So, and I think, tell us about the picture here. So is this some of the team, I presume?
Yes, this is most of the team, and a couple of other people who are, well, one's Laura, she's moved away now, and Richard, who's a major supporter, and Ian, who's the husband of Chris, so a partner of Chris, sorry, jumped the gun there, sorry. I'll be in trouble later. This was the design that we had a pre-viewing of the design once it was printed in quarter size print, so that they got first view of it. So we had tea in the garden, and they all brought cake, and yeah, it was just a lovely afternoon. Lovely.
Okay, hopefully our tech expert is gonna sort out this slide. So here we are. So actually, funding is my next question, because obviously, again, you know, so just just doing that amount of mosaic requires a certain amount of funding. If not for the materials, then for your time. So how is the project funded, and what kind of fundraising have you been in? I presume you've been involved in some of the fundraising efforts.
Oh, all of it, yes. Yeah. So right back at the beginning, to get the project off the ground, we had some nice donations from the Wales Lions, the Civic Society, and a few other organisations, and it just enabled us to buy the initial materials and to buy some software and to get some printing done, things like that, and pay for a little bit of my time. And you know, we were hugely grateful for that, because it was them giving money in faith, because there was nothing tangible, there was no solid design, and it was all in my head basically, and scribbles on bits of paper. So yeah, hugely grateful for those initial bits of money that came in.
Okay, and how did you progress the fundraising? So once you had that initial thing, obviously that also gives you a sort of kick up the backside to get going on it. So yes. How did you progress that, in the sense of how has it been funded as you've gone along? Because I assume you don't have the full amount, whether I'm not even sure whether you've costed it fully proper, you know.
Yeah, well, we've estimated it, yes.
So how have you sort of pulled in pockets of funding along the way?
Private donations, organisations have just, you know, we've done presentations to organisations around Wales and charities, and they've given us cheques. And again, you know, without anything tangible in the early stages. Then my husband came up with the idea of making some prototypes and taking them along with us to these presentations, so that people could see life-size elements at these presentations and touch them and just get a feel for the colours and the design and what it was going to look like. And it did make a huge difference.
Yes. I think when you ask people about what do they think a mosaic is, they will be many different things that people are thinking, right? So some people might be thinking Roman mosaics, and other people might be thinking swimming pool mosaics, and who knows. So I think that element of creating something tangible that they could see the style and the you know the materials was probably a brilliant initiative.
It made a big difference. Big difference. And then again, that then encouraged people because they could see, I could do it, but they sort of got more of an idea of it then, and they had more faith in giving. So yeah, that was good.
And then you talked about some other elements, like I think you mentioned musical concerts, and it sounds like you've actually done a whole load of, you know, quite a wide range, because people are quite often asking me about you know, how do you get the funding for a project? So give us a little bit of, you gave me a whole load of ideas about when we talked about it initially. So just
so we've done market stalls where we've literally rattled the tin, and I've been doing a demo on the stall. So and people just can't believe how long it takes, and it's so important to show people that, because it does take a long time. Even working in squares, it takes a long time, but when you're adding the detail, it just takes forever sometimes. So it was really interesting just to see people's reactions to that. So that's the market stall we did, which was great fun. There was a wonderful event in the cathedral where many organisations and charities and things all got together. It was a big Wells day, and we had a stall there, and that was great. That was we got a lot of support then. And then we laid on a concert, and we actually raised a lot of money. We raised over £1,000 at this concert, and Ian and I, my husband and I, both musical. Brilliant. And there's some other musical friends that we've known for donkey's years, and that was a really fun evening. Really fun. We were going to do it again last June, but of course we couldn't, so we hope to do it again at some point. And we had a bar, and we had it was good, really good. Raffle, we did a raffle, so excellent. So we're doing a lot of hands-on stuff. We did a quiz night. We did plan to do the in conjunction with the local cinema, we planned to do a preview night of one of the films that was coming out, and lockdown happened and we couldn't do that, so it's all been on hold since then.
So with regards to payment, obviously you are busy working on this and have been for a while, I believe, and I know from my experience, certainly a lot of time and energy goes into the research and design process. So, you know, if you're anything like me, I never managed to charge enough for it. But I'm just wondering, you know, have you managed to be paid for at least some of your work, and how are you surviving?
So I charged for some of the design work I did, a lot of it. I mean, because I live in Wales, it's my home city. I've lived here for over 30 years, you know, I just love it, and I can't imagine being anywhere else. And I've got so much from living here that it's really nice to be able to give something back and put your heart into something. So I do feel that it's not quite the same as getting a commission, you know, say it were a city somewhere else in the country. So I am, and it's a massive learning curve as well because of the scale of it. So, you know, I am benefiting in many other ways, not just financially. So initially, when there weren't any funds, you know, that's just the way it was. So I have charged for some of the design work.
Well, it's a very personal commission, I think, isn't it?
It is. Yeah,
that is what makes it so special, basically. So let's move on to a little bit about the design process, because
Okay.
it's a brilliant design, and just take us through your process. So obviously I assume we're going to start with research.
Yes. So yes, on this slide there's Claire on the left. She's the most amazing historian. She's just got an amazing brain. She retains everything. And you've only got to mention a person or a place or something to do with Wells, and she'll just reel off fact after fact. She's just incredible. So we went around Wells. This was actually the walk we did when we were talking about which buildings to include in a map, because some of the buildings are highlighted. And it wasn't possible to include them all because of the scale of it. So
Right.
we had to pick and choose. So yeah, that was a lovely evening. I think that was, that we all went round. And then the other major thing that I did for research was I went on a walk with Siobhan Goodwin. She runs a business in Wales called Wales Walking Tours. And I don't know if you know that Wales is famous for Hot Fuzz. Was this the the film set for Hot Fuzz? So she does Hot Fuzz tours, she does local history tours, she does all sorts of things. So I went on a walk with her, and I just learned so much, even having lived here for so long. So that was invaluable as well. So yeah, it's interesting what you learn.
I love those walking tours. They just like you say, even if you have been somewhere forever and you think you know the place, there's always more to be revealed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit. So I know we're sort of talking generally about the design process, but can you take us through your final concept of the design? I think that will sort of take us through the research as well that goes with it. So give us an idea of what that design is.
So it's a circular design. It's 6 meters across.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's got bands of information across it, sort of starting with the border, moving on to, I'm looking at it over here, moving on to some text, then quatrefoils and windows, then some water, and then the map in the middle, which contains the buildings and the roads. So yeah.
Okay, and the map in the middle is it a current map or is it a medieval map? What's?
It's a current map, but it's in more of a medieval style.
Okay.
So you know, we're not including modern buildings. We're just including some of the historical buildings. Certainly not all of them. Most of the key ones that we considered worth including.
And that was something that you decided on as a group, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a scary thing to make decisions on your own.
Right.
It's scary enough making it, but you know, and then people seeing it.
And then justifying it as well to the people.
Making all those decisions.
My building on there.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and I mean, Wales is just incredible. There are some beautiful pieces of architecture.
Sorry, Ruth, to interrupt. I'm just looking at the chat. Are you able to hold up the design by any chance, or is it stuck on the wall somewhere?
I can. Excuse me a second.
I think we do have a slide of some of it, don't we, somewhere?
We have a slide a bit later on, I believe.
Rachel, are you able to flick forward towards the? Yeah, here we go.
It is.
That's it. Yeah. So that's easier, I think, isn't it? So talk us through it now. Yeah. So now let's work from the outside in, I think.
Okay.
So you've got that lovely sort of pattern design to begin with. Tell us about that.
Okay. Right. So the border is it's sort of Romanesque, isn't it? Really. It's guilloche, I think they're called, an interwoven, entwined braid that can consist of many strands. This is just two, and it's quite straightforward. But and I wanted it to have a really strong border. So on one of my walks where I was looking for inspiration, I came across some stone carvings above the north porch. I think there's a slide of that somewhere as well.
I think it's coming, yes. Sorry, Rachel, to jump around.
And it was loosely based on that. Yes, that was it there. So the one on the right, it's just, there's a bit of a flourish in the middle of the I don't know what the shape is, but yeah, it was loosely based on that. But I wanted it to sort of be connected to something, not just random, you know. I think it's good to tie these things in.
Well, I always feel like there's no point in plonking artwork in a spot and hoping that everyone will like it. And
absolutely, so I mean, you know, that's so important for people to feel connected to it and for it to be aesthetically pleasing.
And I think it was what makes it very personal and very special to a given location. And to me, that is what public art is all about. So I think it's really important that you did that. And it's clear from that slide's great, because I love that you can really see what inspired you on is that the cathedral entrance?
Yes, yeah.
So what inspired you on the cathedral that actually then translated into your mosaic design. So brilliant. So Rachel, can we pop back to the design and let's continue working through that, please?
There we go. So very early stages. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Then we have a second, a ring of text, right?
Yes, we do. Text. Yeah. So the ring of text is because it wasn't possible to include, well, novelists, I guess. What I've tried to do is to include as many as a cross section of Wales life as possible. So, you know, people, events, history, architecture, all sorts of things. And to try and incorporate literature was a bit more difficult. And Claire, my amazing history friend, is a book fiend as well. And she's got a library of all the local novelists' books. So I was chatting to her one day and she said, well, I'll lend you some if you like. So I read through this book and it was just amazing, written by an author called Emma Marshall. And she lived locally and she just wrote the most amazing things and they just really spoke to me. And so I've got a quote, one of her quotes in it. Do you want me to read it to you?
Yes.
I mean, I was spoilt for choice because there is so much written about Wales. Right. Surprisingly. So she put, the great west front of Wales Cathedral has few rivals. Dull indeed must be the heart that does not respond to its grandeur. I just thought that was lovely because it is a bit of a wow moment when you walk past it. It's amazing. And then the other things that are in it are things like Vickers Close is the oldest inhabited street in Europe, and
excellent. Nice.
A translation from the city coat of arms, the fullness that springs from the well because of wells. Brilliant. So, you know, again, things that are key to the city.
I love it. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got through the first two lines, the first two borders. So then I can see the quatrefoils. Is that what the official name for them? So they're the round blobs with the four sort of petaled shapes in the middle, isn't it? Tell us about those.
Well, I included those because there weren't enough spaces in the windows really, and there are 32 of each. And once I'd filled up the windows, I just felt that there was more, and I could do things, which is mad. I know, I'm just giving myself more.
You have enough to do already, right?
So it's difficult to categorize things as well as a major event or a lesser major event. So I sort of decided that things I could represent in a smaller image would go into a quatrefoil, and then things that needed a bit more space would go into a window. So the quatrefoils have ended up being things like industries from the past history of Wales. Brilliant. Things like a brush factory, a rope factory, all sorts of weird and wonderful trades that used to exist, and things like the festivals. We get lots of festivals, literacy festival, food festival, all those sorts of things. So they're in the quatrefoils. And then the windows, which are the next thing in.
Windows.
Yeah.
Back to the design. Well, we'll go back, but we know. So then below the quatrefoils, there are this series of arched windows, which I'm assuming they were inspired. Well, how did you get to those?
Yeah, absolutely. Cathedral, stood in front of the cathedral, you know, that was a eureka moment. Just stood there seeing all those and thinking, yeah, that's it. That's what I'm going to have to do.
Okay. So it's loosely based on the shape of windows up. There we are. Look at that. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Timing on the slides. Thank you, techie. So awesome. So that was a moment in the design. How far along the design process was that? Because it sounds like the design, you know, I think for anyone who does a design like this, it's not something that happens overnight. And there are lots and lots of, especially, you know, this is Wells in Mosaic, and you've really made a huge effort to bring lots and lots of elements into this. And so I imagine there were all these little details that kept popping in, and you know, I assume you were wondering, well, where can I put that? You know, so yeah. So at what point did you sort of come to that decision of like, wow, the windows, that's a good.
Quite early on. I obviously started with a map because that's what Steve wanted, you know, that's what he said, it's going to be a map of Wells.
Got it.
And I was trying to incorporate bits of history into it, like some of the bishops and things that I felt were key. And it just wasn't working how I initially was drawing it. So that was the point then. I thought, well, a series of windows around the outside would answer all the problems. So, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, brilliant. So I can't see the design again, but once we get through the windows and there we go. So there's a further border. So tell us about that, because that's really important as well, isn't it?
Which one's that?
So the inner border, which is that the water border?
Oh yes. So yes, a ring of water, of course, because of Wells, has to be water. And yeah, that's just got lots of bits and pieces in it, like things that appear on the moat, a duck and a heron. So yeah, so this is a close-up of the design. And what we've done here is I've dropped in, I've copied and pasted basically images that I've photographed of the prototypes, and I've dropped them into the design on screen. Brilliant. To give an interpretation of what the colours will look like. It hasn't worked so well in some areas because on a piece of paper that big, you can't colour it all in. You know, when people want to see coloured in design, it's very difficult.
Well, and I think it is reasonable to not be expected to do a full colour design for something, but rather to have these sections that gives you a hint of how you know, and then to leave the commissioner to scale it up in their mind. So was that enough? I mean, we talked a bit vaguely about the commissioning process, but how much input did the people who want the mosaic actually have in your design process? If any?
Very little, very little. I'm very lucky.
You are.
So I can't blame anyone for it, really. The odd thing cropped up where we thought perhaps we should include that, and a few little bits have changed. So it's good to be flexible, I think.
Okay, nice. So and then you said let's get to the map in the middle. So I remember in the, whenever it was, 90s, I think there's that very popular series of maps where people would hand drawing on the building. So I get the impression, not that I think they'll be in that sort of style, but that's kind of what you're doing with the map, isn't it? So
I've got a collection of so many images of maps. I've looked at so many different types. There was a lot of considerations to make on how you put the angle of the buildings, bearing in mind it's going to be on the ground.
Yes.
But when you see an image of it, it's in front of you. So do you make the buildings all one way round?
Right.
Or do you lay them out as though you're walking around the roads and then they're either side of the road? You know, all sorts of decisions that had to be made.
So is there a right way up of the map? Presumably
Yeah.
the writing on the roads is all one way. Is that right? What was your decision on that? Because that's
so we decided one way up was the best way to go in the end, because when you're walking across it, you know, it's not like you're walking down a street. I think it will be fine. But more than that, when you see it on the page, if you had everything the wrong way around, it just wouldn't work.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've been through all the borders. So that sort of takes us through the design process, or the actual the design decisions. But tell us a little bit more about your process of how did you work? You know, I assume you started with some smaller drawings, some napkin sketches, maybe.
Yeah.
And then tell us a bit more about sort of what you must have. I imagine this was a big learning curve as well.
Yes.
And without having to put hours and hours and hours of drawing time in, how did you get around that problem?
So initially it was drawings, hand drawings, colouring in, and that was one of the first ideas I had.
Okay.
It didn't have a border, it didn't have a font or script around it, and obviously the Gothic windows, but it just didn't feel right, it didn't feel strong enough. So and then sorry, your question was, how did I
tell us about the sort of drawing and the scaling up, and you know, what the technical process of that?
Yeah, well, it did become obvious quite quickly that redrawing and redrawing wasn't going to work on that scale. And I haven't used design software before very much at all, apart from very basic stuff. So it became evident we were going to need something else. And the Creative Cloud, I decided InDesign was probably the way forward, and had a few friends that could use it, so they could show me what sort of thing was possible, and it looked like it was going to work, but I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. And so went to a friend, and he showed me a few ideas. Well, he actually put the writing on here for this bit of the design, because that was one of our first logos when we were publicizing it. Okay. So he showed me how to do that, and then it just sort of took off from there, really, where I was learning it, and I couldn't work out how to do it from the YouTube all the time. It was very complicated, and different people, different people explain it in different ways, so you can't sort of join the dots, as it were, and I just couldn't do it. So I went to see a local company called JPEG, a husband and wife team, who use it all the time, and I just said, can you help me? And they were incredible, absolutely incredible, and they gave us free time, and they were just amazing. And every time I had a problem, I'd be on the phone, or I'd go and see them, or they'd come and see me, and they just taught me so much. And I'm still a learner by a long shot, but I learned enough so that I could get it all into software. And it meant changing things then was just so easy. You just literally, you can rub things out and
take that out, put that in, right?
Yeah,
that's a huge gift from them, I think. And,
absolutely.
And I think you said something about they really, because this is the kind of design that if you draw it, it could quite easily go off, or maybe the windows would be slightly out, and then you're redrawing again. So I remember you saying that they were the ones who managed to show you how to put it into a circular design, so that you could really align the windows, and the technical alignments were correct.
Absolutely, right? The geometry, or the geometrics of it all, and just get it all balanced and mathematically correct.
Right.
So they loaded in the bones of everything, all the design, the bones of it, and then I did my hand drawings, and then I scanned them and dropped them in.
Amazing.
And then I could resize them and fiddle about to my heart's content. Yeah.
Brilliant. So this is a great example of where the tech side of things can really, really help in, you know, in this kind of scale of design, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't have done it without it.
Brilliant. So, so we've talked a little bit about the design and so on. So let's talk about the materials, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
What was your choices?
So it was a no-brainer, really. Winkleman's Unglazed ceramic. The colours are just amazing, and again, aesthetically pleasing, and heritage, and just lovely. And they were just perfect. You know, you wouldn't want glass on the ground because it'd be slippery. And marble was, I haven't worked with marble, so I've used this a lot. So yeah, and they're great for all weather, aren't they, as well? Their technical data is very, very sound.
I was going to say, so for people who are not familiar with these tiles, they are hugely recommended for the floor because they are unglazed ceramics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have the one color that goes all the way through the tile. And what that means is that if should it be put into a very heavily trafficked area, which this is possibly a heavily trafficked area, even as people, you know, rub away at the surface, the color will not diminish. So obviously that's the opposite of a glazed tile, where there's the possibility that the glaze will be rubbed away and you'll be left with that biscuit base underneath, which is no good for a project like this. So absolutely, they also have a slip resistance. Like you said, the technical data on them are brilliant. So tell us a little bit more. I mean, I totally agree that the colors and so on are just brilliant. I think, tell us a little bit more, just quickly, before we sort of, I'm dying to see what's on your table, basically. But just very quickly, sort of, how did you prepare yourself in terms of this? I know that you're obviously a mosaic artist, and but perhaps, you know, tell us a little bit more about your sort of background, and how did you come to this point in terms of your mosaic history or career to get to this point where you felt okay to take this on?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when Steve asked me, I thought, wow, really? You know, am I up to this? And I have done a lot of outdoor projects. I've done doorsteps in the same technique. Indirect, and I've done a few larger things, but nothing on this scale whatsoever. So I read and I looked on the internet, and I just tried to gain as much experience as I could.
I think, Rachel, could we quickly, there are just a few slides. Yeah, there we go. That's you in your studio, isn't it?
Yes, so this was the Swans of Wells, which was a fabulous event in 2012, where we had 60 swans around Wells to celebrate the Diamond Jubilee, would have been, wouldn't it, of the Queen?
Oh, yeah.
And they were all on public display, and there was Swan Trails, and yeah, that was a really good event. So my swan was a rainbow swan called Arcus, and he went in the local toy shop. Nice. And then they all got sold to auction, offered auction at the end. So yeah, that was good. And then I've done a few doorsteps, and yeah, so this is our front doorstep with the cat. So, you know, it's all good practice when you're doing these things, because you have to make sure you like them, because you're walking over them every day. Right. So it's good practice. But then I decided I needed a little bit more information on large scale, because it was much bigger than anything I have done before. And Gary Drossel, who I've always admired, has been a great inspiration, and his large scale mosaics are just mind-blowing. He was running a course in London, and I thought, well, this is a prime opportunity to go and learn from him. So I went to London for a week, and yeah, just learned a huge amount. It's amazing, because when you're reading books and when you're watching the internet and all sorts of things, you know, you think you're learning, and you are learning, but you go to somewhere like that and you learn things by watching people and by just being part of a group and being part of a team. And yeah, I think that, you know, they are well worth the money, definitely.
Absolutely agree. And
Yeah.
we're referring to the, I think it was called Largescale Indirect installations that I set up as part of the masterclass series with Will Wotton from King's College London.
Yeah.
And it was at the London School of Mosaic. So here we are in the picture actually making the piece. And like you said, you know, it's like a recipe. You can read a recipe many times, but it's so different when somebody shows you how to do it and give you those little nuances, momentary things of like, oh, just stir it a little bit there, or, you know, just do that. So
yeah,
like you say, real gold mines in information and learning.
It's also a great opportunity to ask questions, because you've always got questions.
Yes, exactly.
And when you're working on something, you always think of the questions while you're doing it. So you know they're there.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. And I think this came at just the right moment for you, didn't it? I remember when we put it up that you went, oh, that's just what I need. And I feel the same, you know. I think you can learn a lot. You can self-teach a lot. And a lot of Mosaic is just repeat, do some, try it. But there does come a point where some kind of input is hugely important and hugely beneficial to your process. So,
and I think you have to recognize that, because otherwise, you know, you could be going ahead into something that ends out to be a total disaster, and you've only got yourself to blame then, haven't you?
Exactly. So that was a really good timing, and I think that was really important. So look, we're looking at your lovely sweetie jars behind you. So I think this is a really good moment. Could you just take us out? I'd love to see, if you can, turn the camera around, and let's have a look at because you're in your studio, and
I am.
Look at what's on the desk at the minute, please.
Okay. So here we are. I take you to one end of the bench.
Brilliant. Okay, so just tell us about, so that is a massive table that you've got in there. So is this at the table that you always have? Did you self-construct it? Is it bought? What's going on with the table first?
It's just MDF, or whatever it's called. I think it's MDF, isn't it? Okay. With some good old IKEA trestles underneath.
Lovely. Okay.
Yeah, nice. Very practical, so you can move it around.
Okay, great. And tell us, so this is part of the process of doing a massive scale mosaic. So just tell us about what's happened. So we can see that the end bit of the circle has been chopped off, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yep. So that's a part that you've already finished. And just take us through your process as you go through it now. So you're working, let's say, from this side, right? So at this point, you are working upside down. Is that all right?
Yes.
How's that?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I bet.
But because it's all printed, you know, it's much easier.
Okay, so you had it printed on a massive bit of paper, that looks like. It's not all taped together, is it?
It is taped together, yes. So it's all taped. And then then glued,
Okay, and this is, you are working in reverse onto brown paper, correct?
Yes,
All right, and the glue you're using is?
So I just use a flour water paste.
Okay,
Develop my own recipe, so it's a temporary glue.
Yeah, that's right.
So just to give a quick explanation of the method. So you stick it with a temporary glue onto the paper, and then when the next section, so when the next band all the way along is completed, sort of up to this
for a second so that we can see. Okay,
up to that red line. Sorry, I'm flitting around. When that bit's complete,
there we go. Lovely.
You can cut it all up into sections, and then it gets stored in boxes. And all catalogued.
And
then you pull the whole thing across.
Yep.
and you move on to the next section.
So you've then got the next whole sort of, it's about a foot, is that right, at a time?
Yeah, yeah.
Lovely, amazing. Okay. Uh, so good. So look, we've got a couple of windows there. Just take us through those two windows as we've got them right there.
So this is a carnival mask.
Great. Okay, hold it still so we can just focus on it. Lovely, amazing. So, and the carnival, I love the fact that you've referenced not just the sort of real old heritage, but also this is what I would call new heritage.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Yeah, Wales Carnival is just the most amazing event. You know, all the kids come home from university for it. Normally,
Brilliant.
Of course, it didn't happen last year. It's just a really good packed event at night, which is why I've put the dark background in that window. Lovely. So it's an illuminated carnival.
Brilliant. Wow. I already want to come. Okay, so I can see the Olympic Games and a candle in the quatrefoils.
Yeah, so we've got two gold Olympians that Wales is very proud of. So that's a nod towards them.
Nice.
Candles, there was a candle making factory. There's a nice little mosaic to put in. So that's just Lovely. A couple of those.
That's right. I really like referencing, especially sort of industrial heritage that's perhaps not there anymore. Is the candle factory still there? Or
no, absolutely not. No.
Brilliant. No. Okay, so that, because I think that's really important. You are setting into stone, you know, some of the history, which is fantastic. Okay, yeah. Let's see that next window.
So this window is to commemorate Herbert Balch, who set up the Wells Museum. And he was an architect, and he excavated in the caves around the Mendip Hills and Wookey Hole, and that's a homage to him.
Brilliant, lovely. And then we've got that little strip of the gorgeous water border, and wow, look that, I mean, it really shows us a little bit of the scale of this mosaic. Look at those lovely details, and the cows in that's brilliant. And the balloon, I mean, they're gorgeous, but just the scale of this piece is just massive. Show us, like, turn the camera slowly around so that we can see the rest of the desk again. I mean, it really is a huge undertaking. Look at that. Wow, amazing. And there, look, now tell us a little bit more. So look, here you've got some prepared materials, right, ready to rock. So yeah, tell us a bit about your process there. Do you do all that cutting, and has your wrist fallen apart yet?
No, I don't do all the cutting. I do the majority of the cutting, but I have some behind the scenes helpers, Catherine and my daughter, yes. And Jane. So yeah, I mean, I'm very organized with the size of the tiles. So I have a big ice cream container for the whole tiles.
Right.
And then I have a smaller one with half tiles.
Lovely.
I'm not sure if you focus on this.
Yes, yeah, that's good. That's
yeah, great. And then I go down a size again, and I have a box of quarters.
Yep.
And then I go down again, and I have a bits and pieces.
Bits. Okay. So and the main tile size, would you say, is that the quarter squares, or?
Yes, yes. So, you know, the majority of it is quarters. But I'm using halves in the wall because
got it.
It's just more brick-like.
Yes, yes, brilliant. Okay. And then in there, I just saw a little hint of a building there in the map. Is that, so here you're already into the central area, is that?
I know, it's quite exciting.
That is exciting. I imagine for you it's very exciting at this point. Yeah. Brilliant. So what's that building there?
Oh, sorry, that's the local Catholic church.
Okay.
No, it's not the Catholic church, it's the Methodist church, I'm sorry.
The Methodist church, okay.
Yes, I've tried to include a few denominations, because we'll have cathedral. Yeah. And we've got the parish church in there.
Yeah.
2 parish churches. So the Catholic church as well, and the Methodist church. And then that one is the Bishop's Barn, which is actually where the site of the of the mosaic will be.
Gorgeous. And I can see, look at that lovely stack of tiles in the back there. So Tracy asked a question about ordering. So tell us about your ordering process. I think your husband has very kindly done some of he's keeping up to date on the questions in the chat, but just to, in case people are not reading it, can you tell us about the ordering? Because did you order all the tiles at once? And if so, how did that work? Do you have to order whole boxes? Can you just order a sheet at a time, or how are you going about it?
Well, I'm ordering as I go. So I didn't have the funds to order everything initially, you know, and also I hadn't made all the colour decisions. For some of the windows, I hadn't worked out colour palettes and things. So I didn't want to have everything in advance. So it's worked better for me. I guess I'm ordering about 10% at a time.
Okay. So are you ordering direct from France, or have you got a supplier in England?
I've got a supplier in the UK.
Brilliant. Okay. I'm sure if people want you to share that, we can share that at the end.
Yes.
I'm sure I caught sight of some books somewhere. Was there a lovely stack of books I saw?
Yeah, up there.
And some of these are reference books, presumably, for this. Where's all your reference? Do you have like folders or sheets of stuff that are referencing the design process for this?
Yes, I do. I've got all sorts of things.
There we go. There they are, the folders. Look at that.
The folders, yes.
You are so organised. I'm very, very impressed.
So I've got folders of quatrefoil designs, window designs, maps, buildings. Yeah, so much.
Amazing. Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, so thanks. Let's go off live now, I think, and let's get back to. I've just got a few more questions for you, and then we'll open it up to everybody else. So if anybody has questions at this point, please do write them in the chat, and we'll try to come back to them and cover anything we haven't already covered. But so tell us about so we've talked about sort of working in the indirect method, but I know that when I asked you about it before, you mentioned that you have had some deviations in this method, and you've obviously developed your own style of doing things in a way that works for you in this particular process. So tell us about some of those.
Yeah, so I initially started planning to do the whole thing indirect, but it wasn't working for me, and I prefer to see what I'm doing, and with the detail I just much preferred to work direct. So I do double direct now, where when we had it printed, I had 2 prints done. So one was in reverse, which is the one I'm sticking to on the bench, and then I had one done the right way round. So I've cut that up, and every section I need, then the windows, the quatrefoils, the buildings, I'm doing directly. So I just feel it just gives me better control. And also when you cut the tiles, the edges aren't always straight, and I don't like the backs of them sometimes. So yeah, again, it's more control. So I've got a little workstation where I do direct. So I do the whole window, and then when that's dry, I flip it and put it onto the indirect side.
So that's interesting. I learnt direct, and that means for me it's always the sort of ground base for me, that I'm much happier when I'm working direct.
Me too.
I can see what I'm doing, and you can see that the cuts of the tile are good, rather than I don't know. I
mean, I do think on large scale, where you've got large filling in areas, it's less vital to be direct, because it's background, and it's less important.
So the green area, presumably you've just done indirect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the brick background between the windows and that kind of thing.
And the water. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is part and part, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and I think to get the detail, the amount of detail that you're getting into those windows, I totally understand wanting to work direct.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting addition to
Yeah, and it takes longer. It takes
and there's
longer as
no
well.
right or wrong to any of this. It's what you feel comfortable with, and what makes you feel confident will come out with the best result, I think.
Yeah.
So I was just looking at the oh my god, now we've just spurred a whole load of questions, so perhaps I'll try and come back to those, because let's just sort of finish. Tell me about deadlines. Do you have a deadline on this? And
no.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
So well, as you said at the beginning, that the groundworks and the redevelopment works hasn't started yet, as far as I know. Is that right? So at least that pressure is off, isn't it? But though, in that case, then I think my next question is, how do you keep your focus? Do you set yourself daily goals, or and are there points where you just want to pick it up and throw it off the table?
I mean, to be honest, it's been perfect timing, because I started it right at the end of March when lockdown started, and it couldn't have been better timing. Right. I've had a reason to get up in the morning and not listen to the news, and put nice music on and just get away from what's been going on in the world. So I really feel very fortunate that that's all happened now. And no, I don't get fed up of it, really, because there are so many different elements to work on. If I feel like I'm in the mood to do a detailed bit, then I'll work on that. Or if I just want to fill in, I'll do that. So there are so many different elements that can keep my mood occupied for that day.
Yes. So that's really important, isn't it? Because you may not feel like doing green background every day for a week. So
no.
I think that's really, it's quite an important sort of mental thing, isn't it? That I remember you saying you had a choice. It was good that you had a choice, isn't it? That
yes,
you might feel like just doing background one day.
Yeah.
Equally, you might come in and think today's a window day, or
yeah, because prior to this, I might have had 3 or 4 projects on the go, and I think most of us have several things on the go, and some days we just can't face looking at one thing and we'll choose to do another. So it's the same thing, really.
Yes. Yep. Brilliant. Nice. So do you ever want to pick it up and throw it off the table? Do you get frustrated with it sometimes, or do you just not go into work? I suppose is that if you don't have that pressure of a deadline, you have the luxury of choosing just not, to read a book if you like it, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Or? I've recently subscribed to Audible, actually, so I'm being read to now. It's lovely. Really enjoying that.
Work, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I don't. I honestly don't get fed up of it. I'm excited by it, and I get excited when I'm cutting off the next strip, or like I said, when I'm moving on to the map. And I think it's because I live here, and it's because I know it so well that I'm sort of connected to it in quite a strong way. I
imagine every time you do a window as well, it's like, oh, look at that one. I've got new favourite.
We all love completing it, don't we?
Absolutely. And because they're so personal, they are really special, aren't they?
They are. And a lot of them have got personal connections. There's one window that's got the swan ringing the bell. I don't know if you know of the swans of the bell ringing swans of Wells that are famous. And they ring the bell for food.
Do they?
Yes.
So there's obviously a big connection with swans and wells. What is that?
Yeah. Connection? Yeah, they've just always been on the moat, I think. Okay. And then the bell ringing swan was allegedly taught by a bishop's daughter to ring bells, and it's become a tradition. So all the new swans now learn to ring a bell. So one of the windows has got this connection, and then that connects to me, because when I was a child, I used to come into Wales with my mum on the bus, and with my sister and my mum, and we used to bring a bag of stale bread for the swans. So it's got a lot of personal connections.
It's so great. I love the fact that it's so personal for you. So tell me that I think I'm coming to the end of sort of my thoughts on this project, but a little bit about, like, I think we touched on it very briefly at the beginning, but have you had any help from the community? Like, have you had any help actually making the mosaic? Where are you at? Because it is literally, not literally, but real, it's miles of mosaic, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's your sort of thoughts and feelings on that?
I think the local support is the help that I'm having, to see
Right.
that the people are liking what they see, and then they're looking forward to seeing it in the ground. And then we've got a following now, and the funding is coming in. You know, I mean, we have literally had a few checks come in the post, and there's just the most amazing thing when that happens.
Wow.
Or we've got different payment options on our website, and every so often something will drop into PayPal, and a message will go around the group saying, "Yay, we got a donation!" You know, it's great. It's
Brilliant.
Absolutely great. And then as I said, I've had some help cutting from friends and my daughter Ginny, and then, you know, all the family are supportive. They're putting up with me talking about it endlessly. Initially I was, anyway, to the point one of the slides was actually of my birthday cake one year. My daughter made my birthday cake to look like one of the windows. So it just gets into every aspect of your life.
Yes, it does. That's brilliant. And in terms of, without wanting you to have a sort of torrent of people come down and go, I must come and help you, have you accepted any help? You know, I know it's quite hard to direct people, I suppose, to do it in the way that you want it done, but also to kind of let go a little bit.
I know, I'm a bit of a control freak.
Doing that, is it something that you think, or are you all about doing it yourself?
I wasn't initially. I was thinking that I would accept help, and I would train people. I mean, I have done workshops, and I have got a list of people that I know are capable of helping me. But you know, there are things that you come across along the way that make it more difficult. You know, we were talking about paper stretching the other day, and that's quite a difficult thing to come to terms with and to get used to doing. So I feel I'd be checking people's work all the time. So then you evaluate whether it's just quicker to do yourself.
Right.
So I haven't ruled it out.
Okay.
Is the honest answer.
Okay.
But again, lockdown's given me the perfect excuse to be the control freak.
Okay, so that's interesting. What Tracy's just said, I noticed some of the thicker Winkleman's tiles on the table. Is that right? It's the 50 by 50s.
No.
No, you're just using the
2 centimetre.
ones. Yeah. So, Alison is asking, what tools are you using to cut the tiles?
Shall I go and grab them?
Yes. Katrina, sorry, I haven't really kept up fully. I'll try and flip.
Here I am. Sorry.
Now.
Nice pair of robust. What are they called? They've got double hinge. They're called something, aren't they? I can't remember. But anyway, these are fantastic.
Yes.
For cutting hundreds and hundreds of tiles a day.
Okay, and what company is that?
I think it's a German company. Can you see that?
Is that? I can't read it, but I hope everybody else can.
But I mean, that's just one pair. I've got half a dozen.
Okay. And are you using some of the wheeled nippers as well?
Yeah. So these are my favourite ones.
Lovely. Okay. And those are Leponits, is that right?
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can replace the wheels when they get blunt.
That's right. Good.
Yeah.
Or turn them round. Yeah. Love those.
Yeah.
Okay. And sorry, to hold up the other tile cutters. The point is with
sorry, they're called compound, aren't they?
Compound, thank you. Yes, I had a blank there as well. So For anyone who's not familiar with them, they are just like the normal side biters, but they have a compound mechanism in the middle there, which means that it's a much easier cut on the wrist. And the other thing that I sometimes do is just put especially with those thin tiles, is to put a rubber band around.
I was just going to say I do that.
They have a really wide stretch, and so, you know, to save you constantly doing that whole thing is so it just keeps them within a much, you know, more
broken,
sort of closer grip, and is much less strenuous on the wrist.
Yes.
So a few ways of sort of taking the pressure off your wrist.
Absolutely. And it makes a big difference.
Can you use compound for small-T, for glass small-T? Yes, you can, although they're not as precise. I think they tend to crush the glass, I've found, but just try it, I would say. Just to go back to the paper stretching, I know I forgot, well, I'm not sure, last time we spoke, you had a lovely bit on your table. So could you just explain to us about the paper stretching?
The paper stretching, yeah. So paper is called craft paper, and it's slightly shiny on one side and it's matte on the other side. So you stick to the shiny side, and although it's slightly shiny and less porous than the other side, it still absorbs the glue, which of course you want it to, because you want it to hold the tile in place. But the problem is that when you make paper wet, it bubbles and it stretches. So you stick your tiles, and I haven't stuck any today, so I can't show you, but they end up being ridged. So you end up with these big ridged areas that you think, oh, are the gaps too wide? Are they too close? Are they going to stick? So you have to weight them down, and yeah, it's complicated.
I think it's something that you're not prepared for, and like you said, it's when you paste an area of paper, it's like wetting it, isn't it? So it just bubbles up. But the simple solution is that you just put a flat board on top of the area that you've worked on, even though it looks like a roller skating rink, a roller coaster. And by the morning, it's all dried and it is completely flat, which is when we looked at the mosaic on your table, it was all looking in perfect and pristine condition. And that's how you do that, isn't it?
Because when you're doing direct, even though no, you're not sticking to paper on direct, are you? But if you do, I've done double direct before, where you are sticking onto paper. When you're working on a smaller piece, personally, I tape it to a small board, so you're sort of stretching it, and it helps prevent that, doesn't it? But you can't really do that with something of this scale.
Exactly. Okay, so I guess, so I'm sort of at the end. I just wanted to ask you one more thing. So we haven't mentioned installation. So just very briefly, what are you doing about installation? Because that is a big job.
It is a big job. So previously I've installed everything I've done before, but we felt we needed a professional team to do this. So we've been in touch with a lot of mosaicists and installers, and we think we've got the services of a company called Emblemata from London. They've been to see it. They came in between lockdowns and had a look, and we had chats, and they think they're going to take it on. So yeah, we're very, very reassured.
So you're in contact with them and they're happy with your methodology, I would presume. Is that right? Yeah. So, because that's important, isn't it? And in the meantime, you are storing it, you're cutting up tell us a bit about your storage and your...
Yes, so we had a very generous donation last year, so we decided to buy the storage boxes with that. So we've had custom made boxes that look a bit like pizza boxes. Brilliant. And the pieces are all stored in layers in that, safely in the house. So yeah.
Okay, so absolutely brilliant. I think Rachel's just going to put up a slide of facts and figures very briefly.
I did forget to mention, I'm sorry, when we were talking about the funding,
yes,
I forgot to mention the carved stones that we're going to put around the circumference of the mosaic itself.
Well, actually, just to kick off the sort of questions, we've got about 10 minutes or so of questions, but very quickly, obviously you said that the funding had been sort of stalled, there it is, had been stalled by the COVID and the situation. But so how, I assume, you know, we're looking at coming out of lockdown now. So I can tell us, like, how are you're now going to sort of kickstart that again, I would assume. So what kind of elements are you going to bring in that you know, will help your fundraising? Obviously, with, you know, the whole point of this, apart from anything to raise the profile of this, but is also that proceeds from everybody coming to this are going towards the project. So tell us a little bit more. And there's that lovely picture of the Swan Hotel piece.
Yes, so a local stone carver called Andy is going to carve blue lyre stones for us, and we've got a few sponsors already, and they're going to go around the circumference of the mosaic. So rather than people say, well, can I have my logo in the mosaic, which obviously wouldn't be possible, they will have their name set in stone. So it could be a business, it could be for a loved one, it could be a birthday present for somebody, it can be anything that you would like carved into a stone and then set around the circumference. So yeah, we've had a fairly good uptake so far on that, and we hope to be pushing that a lot more now, because what we want to get people up here that have sponsored already with their stone and get a picture in the studio, but of course we haven't been able to do that. So that's one fundraising.
And they are beautiful, and I love the idea that you are creating a space around the mosaic then that becomes like a viewing platform, doesn't it?
Well, there'll be a pathway around it, so yeah, and there'll be drainage, and you know, it will be done
lovely,
properly.
Really nice. So let me just try to flick through some of these questions. So we've done the thing, bigger tiles, we've done that one. Then the thing, some of the windows are thicker, we've drawn the map. Does the map include all the streets and the lanes in Wells, or did you simplify?
So the amount that is the portion of Wells that's included was dictated by the scale of the roads. So the roads are a foot width wide-ish, and that then determined how much of the map we could fit in, because we'd set the scale to 6 meters. The border is 1 meter, so the map was 4 meters. So, you know, we literally got a map and worked out 4 meter diameter with the road size as a foot wide. And I mean, I don't mean a foot as in a measurement foot, I mean as a person's foot. And that dictated it, really.
Nice. There's a few questions about you know, documenting this. So is there going to be a book? Are you, I like this one, are you going to have a written document that goes with Wells in Mosaic, including the stories behind the elements? Like, how are you, because obviously you've had those brilliant historians and the walking tour women involved. How are you going to sort of put that all together?
We're not sure. We're not sure how we're going to put it together at the moment, but we are trying to document as much as possible. And we'd like to produce a book that contains information about all the windows and the quatrefoils, because you can't put words in the windows to explain everything. We were considering at one point putting in the QR code so that people could scan it, but again, you know, that depends on funding, because that's not a cheap option. So that would take them to potentially an app. I don't know. We've discussed all sorts of things.
At least take them to your, there is of course a website, isn't there? So
yes,
it's www.wellsinmosaic.org. Is that correct? Yeah. So Wells in Mosaic, all in one, .org. So just in case, by the way, if I don't manage to include your question in here, you can email Ruth at the website and she will hopefully answer you directly. So, and I apologize if I haven't really, I'm just sort of flicking through these rather inefficiently, I have to say. And a film, what about a documentary?
A documentary, we're time-lapsing it. And we're making a documentary. The first episode of the documentary is about to come out. I haven't mentioned him. There's a local guy called Harry Steele, who is a filmmaker, and he has been making a documentary, and that's been quite scary to watch yourself on camera. That's quite a steep learning curve, but amazing. He's been really, really good, really he's been really kind, and he's helped me with getting it right. So yeah,
I think what's really special is that you've had so much support in kind, haven't you, from the local community? And like we talked about that, you know, the brilliant team that you've had around you, the printers, the guy doing the stone carving. I mean, all of this makes it a really special project, I think. I'm just going to go one last question here. So what about the foundations in the ground? So, you know, of course, floor mosaics really are quite technical, aren't they? And while your installers are going to do the installation process, presumably you have either a builder or a somebody on board who's going to look into those groundworks. Is that right?
Yeah. So again, apologies, this isn't my department, and that's not just an excuse.
It shouldn't be.
But it has been looked into, and my husband's on that side of things. Perfect. And looked into the layers that you need. You know, I know there's a sequence of layers, isn't there, for hardcore and
that's right,
cement and drainage and all those sorts of things.
Exactly.
So yes, it has been considered already. Yes.
Super. So we're coming up to the 1 hour 15 minute, I'm afraid. In fact, actually, sorry, I forgot about the initial 5 minutes. We've sort of overrun slightly. So can I just say thank you so much, Ruth, for sharing all of that with us. And like I said to everybody, if you have more questions, please do get in contact. If you're feeling rich, please do support the project. Donations welcome. And what can I say? Yes, so the recording, just to go over what Rachel said at the beginning, this is being recorded. The recording you'll be sent a link via Eventbrite, and you will have exclusive access, I think, for a month or so. And then after that, it will go onto the BAMM YouTube channel. If you feel like you're in a position to sponsor one of the blue stones, of course, you can have your name put into stone. Or of course, if you have any further suggestions or anything else. And so, yeah, it just remains for me to say that this was a BAMM presentation. So our next event is the make-along for the Prompts in the Prose series. And that will be on Tuesday, the 9th of March at 6:30 p.m. It's with Bonnie Fitzgerald, and I understand Bonnie will be with us on that session. If you've been inspired to join BAMM, then please do go to our website, www.bamm.org.uk, and you can join via the link there. And thank you so much for coming.
And thank you very much for supporting the project and giving us this opportunity to make it a bit more high profile.
Well, good luck with it all. It has been absolutely
well. I want you to come and see it and lay some tiles, because I know you can do it.
I'm itching to. I'm itching to. You know, as soon as this lockdown's over, I'll be running around all over the place, I think. So a BAMM forum in Somerset. Well, that's a brilliant idea, Katie, I must say.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. Rachel is our host here. So Rachel, have I missed anything?
No, I think you've covered everything very well. I've just enjoyed listening to it and trying to say apologies if sometimes the slides stopped and started, but I can't share my screen and admit people to the thing at the start. That was why we had to keep stopping and starting slides just to make sure everyone.
Because if I'd had to do the PEC, it would have been a disaster.
Yeah, me too.
Well done, thank you.
But yeah, hopefully everybody saw enough of the slides and things to go through to back up the talk. But yeah, no, just thank you everybody for coming and supporting this event. It's the first studio visit event that we've done online, so it's been really lovely to see so many people join the event tonight, and so many great questions and, you know, nice comments about things. So yeah, thank you everybody. And as I say, I've put the details in the chat for both Ruth's contact and BAMM's contact, but all that information will also come out to you in an email via Eventbrite as well. So if you want to follow anything up, then you should have all the links and all the information you need to do that. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to Ruth again for just sharing and giving just a brilliant insight into that whole process of putting together something on this scale. It's just been really fascinating to listen to.
Thank you for being interested.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing it finished in a few years or however long it
is in the ground, I can tell you.
Crack that whip and get on with it.
Yeah.
Really, so an amazing project. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we'll leave things there. Thanks everybody for joining.
Bye everybody. Thanks so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.